Hi guys, I'm Jim and this is Jim's Fix-It Shop, and it's been a while since I made a video. I've been really busy. I had a couple callers on my pin router that want to know, how did you mount your router on your radio arm saw? I had an old radio arm saw. Let me turn this. This is it. It dates back into the 50s. It's when they actually made something to last. This one, a friend of mine had it and the bearings got bad and he just kept using it. And I told him, I said, hey, let me pull the motor off that thing and I'll rebuild the motor for you and put new bearings in it. Well, he was busy and he was using it, and it got to the point where you had to spin the blade and turn it on to get the motor to even run after you sprayed a bunch of WD-40 in on the bearings. Well, it got to the point where the blade was floating in and out along with the armature, and it went a little bit too far and grabbed a hold of the field windings on the motor and just shredded them. Well, that's the end of the motor. So I took the whole thing from him and I tore the motor apart and I mounted the router inside of the motor housing, and that's what holds it. Now I'll explain to you how I did that. I guess I've got one sitting on the bench, a new motor and a yoke that fits on this arm, and I've got another complete saw in the lean-to that I carry with me in my truck when I'm on a job site somewhere. Let me show you on this one how we mounted the router. Now, you have to take the motor apart to get to this point. Maybe I'll show you the motor first. Let me spin you around here. Okay, this is my spare motor that fits on that old machine. Now what you have to do is, if you want to, you can take the motor out of this yoke by taking out these 4 bolts, and there's 2 on the back, and the motor will come out. I left mine together. But on the end of the motor, you're going to see 4 nuts. Take them nuts off. Now these are long bolts that go through this entire motor. Once you get the nuts off, you can pull these bolts out. Then you want to get yourself a screwdriver, which I got right here. You put it in a crack on the bottom of this motor and you twist it, it'll pop this end bell off. And you do the same on this side. Then you can pull the armature out. Now all you got left on this is what they call the iron and your field windings that are mounted in this part of the motor. Now if you look really close, I don't know if I can even get this on camera. Whoops. Right here you see a little dimple. That's a pin. They drill a hole through this outer case and into the iron, and they drive a pin in there. There's no way to pull that pin out. What you have to do is look at it and find the center and punch it, and then drill it out with a drill bit. And there's probably, that motor I believe had 6 pins. This one I can find about 4. Each motor is going to be different. But you drill them out, and when you get them all out, that iron and the windings will shove right out in either direction. Then you'll have left what I have over here. Let's spin back around. This is what you're going to have left. If you turn this a couple of times. I normally keep it straight up and down. You never need to twist it or turn it once you get this thing built. Well, This side's probably easier to look at. You can see there's a hollow spot. There's a hollow in here. Down inside there is a piece of oak that I used, an inch thick, to mount the router inside of what's left of this case. You can see it better on the bottom. Now what I did is I took on my bandsaw and I measured this diameter of the router that I needed on a square piece of oak. I cut in, that's what this cut is right here, and I cut this circle out with my circle attachment. I made two of them. There's one on the bottom, there's one on the top. Then I drilled a hole through here for a screw to screw into this. That pinches it shut. Once you got it on the router and pinched shut, then you can measure the inside of your motor frame, and you can cut the outside of this to fit. Now it doesn't have to fit real tight because you're going to screw this in. Then the holes that I made drilling them pins out, let's see if you can see them. Get this thing twisted around here. Here's one here, and there's another one right here. You can't see that one. These two screw heads are what screws into this piece of oak. That's what's holding the router, or this oak, into the motor housing. And there's two on this side. Now you can see this little busted hole right here. That's a pin that I missed. And I was trying to shove the iron out in that direction, and it busted this little hole in here, which isn't going to hurt a thing. And I put a screw. This thing's got too many clamps on it. Put a screw here, in here, two on this side, on the top of the frame, and I put two on the bottom. So there's 4 screws going into each piece of oak that holds the router. So once you get this thing twisted back around where it belongs, that's all there is to it. Now to put the holes in the table, I lined this thing up fairly square with the table I got on here, and I slid it out in the positions I needed it. Oh, I got that tight. I had one here, and I just cranked the head down, and it drilled a 1/4 inch hole into the tabletop. And I drilled one back there, and I drilled 2 out here. That's just so I can swing a bigger radius. If I just had this one here, and I wanted to swing a bigger radius in something, it would hit the post on the back of the machine. Now the hose clamp you see back here, that's a depth stop. So when I'm cranking this thing up and down, my router bit won't come down and hit the top of my pin. I can grab a pin out of here. I can find one. These are the pins that I made that go into these holes. And there's a set screw underneath the table that goes up against these flats and holds the pin where I want it. Now you have to have a different pin for each different diameter of router bit you're using. And I make these at work, so they didn't cost me anything. I just make all of my need. But basically that's how I mounted the router into this old motor housing. The parts that are inside of here I took out and threw away, and if you can, I don't know if you noticed it or not, I took the light bulb out of the router base and mounted it up in this little box just to give me a little extra light on where I was working. The router, you have to take the base off it, so all you have is the round part of the motor, and just mount it up like that. The last comment or question I got on the pin router was from a Billy Bell, and I didn't get a state from you. I don't know where you live, but I hope that answers your question and the other ones I had on how to mount the router in the old radio arm saw. If you got any further questions or problems, just let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you build one of these things. So until next time, work safe, have fun, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you later.